morning, Mr. Martin and everybody. My name is Frederick S.
And my name is Vincent, and today we are going to take a quick look at Japan. First, we are going to discuss about the geography and the climate. Okay, so let's look at some geographical side of Japan. First, the geography. Japan has actually some amazing natural lands, such as we're a bit lagging here. One of the famous mountains in the world, such as Mount Fuji, is in Japan. Some lakes surrounding Mount Fuji includes Lake Notosu, Saiko Lake, Lake Yamanaka, and with the best view of the mountain is Lake Kawaguchi. There is also a lake called Lake Biwa, being the largest lake in Japan with an overall wide of 670.4 kilometers square. There are also rivers in Japan, but if you want to have a look around Tokyo in a boat trip, Sumida River is your best choice because the river flows through the Tokyo city. And the next one, we will be discussing about the climate. Weather in Japan is not that bad. Such as there are many the climate of Japan is cold in the north, where snow and ice dominate in the winter, temperate in the central regions, and almost tropical on the small southern islands. The rains are abundant almost everywhere, and between summer and autumn, the country is hit by torrential rains and typhoons. Winters in Japan starts at December of the first year and ends commonly at March of the next year, such as, for example, December 2020 and March 2021. Between December 2020 and March 2021, winter will be starting in Japan. And the next one, we will be discussing about people, which will be presented by my friend.
Okay, let's discuss a bit about people. Next. Ethnics. So according to census statistics in 2018, 97.8% of the population of Japan are Japanese, with the remainder being foreign nationals residing in Japan. The number of foreign workers have been increased dramatically in recent years due to the aging population and the lack of labor forces. Now, let's take a look at the ethnic groups table chart at the next slide. Now, as you can see, the majority comes from China, which had around 700,000 people living in Japan, followed by South Korea, which had around 400,000 people. Indonesia was placed at the 9th place, which had around 56,000 people. Next. Religion. So in Japan, Shinto and Buddhism are the two major religions. Shinto is as old as the Japanese culture, while Buddhism was imported from the mainland in the 6th century. Since then, the two religions have been coexisting relatively harmoniously and have even complemented each other to a certain degree. Most Japanese consider themselves Shintoist, Buddhist, or even both. For those who haven't been to Japan, you might be surprised by the fact that religion doesn't play a big role in the everyday life of most people. Typically, the average person follows the religious rituals at ceremonies like births, weddings, and funerals. They may also visit a shrine or temple on New Year and participate at local festivals, which usually called Matsuri, which means most of which have a religious background. But there are also other religions that brought from other ethnic groups such as Christian, Muslim, or Confucianism, which was brought from. Now let's move on to the next slide. Language. Now, obviously, the most spoken language in Japan is Japanese, but Japanese is separated into numerous dialects, one of which is Ryukyuan language, which are spoken at Okinawa and parts of Kagoshima in the Ryukyu Island. Similar to the other Japanese language family, these languages are not mutually intelligible with Japanese. In Hokkaido, there is the Ainu language, which is spoken by the Ainu people, who are the indigenous people of the island. The Ainu languages, of which are isolated and do not fall under any nations. Before we move on, there are languages like Orok, Evenki, and Nivki, which are spoken in formerly Japanese-controlled Southern Sakhalin, are becoming more and more endangered. Speakers of Korean and Sainichi Korean, which stems from Korean, also reside in Japan. Next. The next topic we will be discussing is clothes. Now, there are typically two types of clothing that the Japanese wear, which the Japanese clothing such as kimonos and Western clothing. Japanese traditional fashion combines multiple styles that reflect early Japan's visual culture. It represents the culture's visibilistic and traditional values and joins them together to create a form of fashion recognizable to foreign cultures. The most well-known form of Japanese traditional fashion is the kimono, which literally translates to something to wear. Now, clothes, which is fashion, has a wide range of things that can be discussed. Fashion is so wide and large that it can be discussed as a whole new topic. So let's move on to the next slide instead. This next slide will be presented once again by my friend Vincent here.
Okay, thank you. And then we will be discussing about culture. How does culture work in Japan? First, we're gonna see about some aspects of the culture, such as first, history. One of the most important events that had happened in Japan, of course, the most famous one is the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And what happened in that bombing was the United States detonated 2 nuclear weapons over Japan, over the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August 6 and 9, 1945, respectively. With the consent of United Kingdom, as required by the Quebec Agreement, the 2 bombings killed between 129,000 and 226 people, most of who were civilians and remain the first and only users of nuclear weapons in armed conflict. Next, we will be discussing about politics. The politics of Japan consists of conducted in a framework of multi-party bicameral parliamentary representative democratic constitutional monarchy, whereby the emperor is the ceremonial head of state and the prime minister is the head of government and the head of the cabinet, which directs to the executive branch. The third, we'll be discussing about the music in Japan. The music of Japan includes a wide array of performers in distinct styles, both traditional and modern. Japanese traditional dance has a long history. About the dance. Japanese traditional dance has a long history. The oldest ones may be among those transmitted through the Kagura tradition or folk dances, relating to food-producing activities such as planting rice or dengaku in Japan and fishing, including rain dances. There are a large number of these traditional dances, which are often suffixed odori, asobi, and mai, and may be specific to a region or village. Mai and odori are the two main groups of Japanese dances, and the term buyo was coined in a modern times as a general term for dance. By combining mai, which can also be pronounced bu, and odori, which can also be pronounced yo, mai is a more reserved genre of dance that often has circling movements, and dances of the Noh theater are of this tradition. A variation of the Mai style of Japanese dance is the Kyo-mai or Kyoto style dance. Kyo-mai developed in the 17th century Tokugawa cultural period. It is heavily influenced by the elegance and sophistication of the manners often associated with the imperial court in Kyoto. Odori has more vigorous stepping movements and is more energetic, and dances of the Kabuki theater belong to this category. The music of Japan includes a wide array of performers in distinct styles, both traditional and modern, and the word music in Japanese is ongaku, combining the kanji on sound with the kanji gaku, which means enjoy. Yes, that's the word music in Japan. Japan is the largest physical music market in the world, worth $2 billion in sales in physical formats in 2014, and the second largest overall music market, worth a total retail value of $2.6 billion in 2014, dominated by Japanese artists. With 37 of the top 50 best-selling albums and 49 of the top 50 best-selling singles in 2014. Local music often appears at karaoke venues, which is on lease from the record labels. Traditional Japanese music differs markedly from Western music, as it is often based on the intervals of human breathing rather than on a mathematical timing. And with that, we have reached the final. Thank you for listening our presentation.
Thank you.